Agree with Rory Stewart that perhaps the thing to do is simply to concentrate on what development assistance you can provide?
No, I set three priorities. I mean, it's up to others to judge whether they're right, and I think Kai Eide, who's done the job that I was going to do, is an exceptional person with exceptional skills who will go about things in a different way than I would have done, but I think has a good chance of putting things right. Now, I think the three priorities for us still, and maybe we can pull this thing back if we concentrate on them, is one, security, but human security. That means not just military security, but good governance, reconnecting water supplies, electricity, etc. Two, crucially, mentioned earlier on, the rule of law. And thirdly, strengthening Afghan governmental structures, but starting from the bottom up, working with the grain of Afghan tribal structures, rather than pretending that you can change the pattern of Afghan government of the last 1,000 years and have Kabul governed from the centre. Can't do that.
Rory Stewart, just finally, would you agree with that shopping list? What do you believe Afghanistan needs now?
I'm afraid that although those are things that Afghanistan needs, they are not things the international community can provide. Rule of law, governance, these are great sounding things, they're very important. We do not
electricity, power stations, provide those
we
sort
can
of
provide
things.
Electricity, we can provide roads, we can provide irrigation. We might also, as Paddy says, be able to protect ourselves against international terrorist building training camps. What I don't believe the international community can do is provide rule of law and governance.
And just a final question, given your relative pessimism about the situation, personally, what are you doing and why are you still committed to what you think is a difficult situation?
Well, I'm working in the centre of the old city of Kabul, working with the community to restore their buildings, clear garbage, create jobs, create schools and clinics. It's very exciting. Afghans are very entrepreneurial. They put a lot of their own energy and time and money into this project. And so long as they want us, so long as we feel welcome, so long as we feel we're making rapid progress, it's the most exciting place in the world to be. But that doesn't mean that I would pretend that I'd be able to reconstruct the Afghan government or create rule of law. What I do is clinics and garbage.
Thanks to you, and thanks to Paddy Ashdown for being with us tonight. Chief is... Well, Afghanistan, as we've seen, is a country in ruins which needs to be rebuilt. And at the Afghan Donors Summit in Paris last week, President Karzai managed to persuade Western governments to give a further £12.5 billion of aid to spend on infrastructure, healthcare and education, sort of things we were just talking about. Well, the Afghan tribal chief, Ajmal Khan Zazai, is still here. And joining him now is Andrew Mitchell, who is the Conservative spokesman on international development, who has recently returned from a visit to Afghanistan. Welcome to you indeed. Let's talk first of all about what you saw in the ground. You travel the world really in international development. You're an expert. What did you see as being the priorities?
Well, I thought that the picture was extremely mixed. We were very fortunate in being able to meet a lot of the Afghan government in Kabul, to go down and see the British troops in Camp Bastion, to go to Lashkargah, the capital of Helmand province, and to meet the new governor there, who is a breath of fresh air, Governor Mangal. And while it is clear that there is considerable progress being made, far more girls get into school, there's far more school coverage in Afghanistan, there's more health coverage. The picture is very patchy in terms of building the Afghan state, because as all your contributors to this programme tonight have made clear, it is building an Afghan state which is the key. And the position there is extremely patchy. We're doing quite well in terms of building the army, and we're doing quite well in terms of some of the work that's done by the Rural Development Ministry. We're not doing at all well in terms of the Ministry of Interior, and the police are really a disaster area. So it's a very mixed picture, but I came back understanding, I hope, that we are absolutely right to be there, that our soldiers and airmen are doing a simply brilliant job in impossibly difficult conditions, and that this is quite a long-term piece of work.
Chief Zazai, where should that £12.5 billion go? I mean, is it what's planned for it, the right way of spending it, do you think, or not?
Well, I think initially when President Karzai went to Tokyo for that summit, there was, I think, $5 or $4 billion were giving to Afghanistan, and I don't think there is any records of where the money was spent. And then again in the London summit a few years ago. So there is no accounts of the money, and this is exactly the lives of the ordinary Afghans is getting worse, and the richer get more richer in the corrupt ones. So by giving money to a government which doesn't have the accountability, I don't think the Afghan nation want that. And it's all over on television, and I've been speaking to a lot of people.
What's the alternative, presumably, is to give it to NGOs, but then that appears to be going behind the back of the government. I mean,
Well, I don't think that's the answer, Adam. I think we, the international community, has to look into other avenues. President Karzai is a wise man. He is a son of Afghanistan. He knows, I mean, he stated himself about 5 months ago on Afghan national television that he is incapable in order to fight corruption and against the warlords. He can't make any moves. So I think this is now the time, and he realized that it's very, very important in order for him to take steps, for him to save Afghanistan, and for him to have the vision in order to put the country on the right track and give this chance to a new government, which would be elected entirely by a loya jirga which would be free of warlords and criminals.
All right, that would be a very radical political alternative, and it does, just concentrating on this whole question of aid, are you concerned, how concerned are you about corruption and money being wasted, and how do you think that can be avoided?
Well, I think that the British approach, which is to put quite a lot of money into a World Bank administered trust fund where you pay out against receipts which are certified by Price Waterhouse, in fact, in most cases, is quite a good way of doing it, because it is the government of Afghanistan we have to build, and we are there in support of President Karzai and that government. However, it is perfectly clear that you've got to build it from the bottom up through local government. That is the reason for the Provincial Reconstruction Task Force, the PRTs that we have heard about, which is a quite successful but inevitably temporary marriage of the military and of
that's
the
more
development.
localised approach.
Yes, I mean that's but it's a marriage of the military and the international development community. That I think we have got right, but it is inevitably extremely temporary.
Now, I should say, here on Sky News, we'll be speaking to President Karzai on Saturday as we come to the end of our Queen and Country Week. But just on the specifics of the government, one of the priorities is to exclude the Taliban, to fight the Taliban. Do you believe the time has come possibly to speak to moderate Taliban, if there is such a thing?
Well, the Taliban, as I'm sure the Chief will make clear, is not one cohesive command structure. I mean, I don't think anyone would suggest that we should speak to people who are killing British soldiers at this time. But equally, there is a need to peel off some of the temporary supporters of the insurgency. There is a need to do deals with warlords and people who are running villages and communities. And I think we should be doing a lot more of that. Some people would refer to that as speaking to the Taliban, but I think it's not as simple as that.
Do you agree with that?
I have a disagreement here, Adam, because what happens when Lord Ashdown was nominated for the job? Nobody was aware of Lord Ashdown because Lakhdar Ibrahimi was the first envoy and people come and go. But when President Karzai refused them, all of a sudden the Afghan nation, the intellectual, the tribal chief, everybody looking to see, who is this man?
Yeah.
So when they look at his records, they said, he is the right man for the job. Now, because a lot of money is going into Afghanistan through the NGOs and giving to the government, there's no account. So this man wanted to put that in a unified figure, plus also have a tab on the government and all that. Now with the Taliban, you can discuss with them. I think the dialogue should be open. I think if you're speaking with people, IRA in Ireland, why not the Taliban?
I mean, this is an idea, as we said, one Conservative MP, Adam Holloway, actually suggested this week.
Exactly, sir. And what I'm saying is that when you have the tribes, what I'm saying about the tribe, the Afghan tribes are not like the African tribes or the Red Indians in America. I'm a tribal man, intellectuals are tribal people. When you have the tribes on board, the tribes will deny them shelter, will deny them food, will deny them safe passages. The tribes will fight them, like you have the similar thing in Anbar, but we will have it in a different way with that tribe, the tribal system.
Well, I'm not sure that we're actually disagreeing very much. I mean, I'm saying you should peel off the temporary friends.
Well, let's bring in Colonel David Lamm in Washington now, who is former Chief of Staff at the coalition headquarters in Afghanistan in 2004 and 2005. David Lamm, a lot of people on the programme have been suggesting there is a need for a new political approach, which might mean dealing with tribal leaders, which could mean dealing with some people who've had some association with the Taliban. Do you see that as a constructive way forward?
Well, yes, I do.